Hello and welcome. Today we've got Glenn Duckett with us. We'll be talking about community projects. Now, just before we begin, I would like for everyone to subscribe to nicholasveniamin.com, where you can receive my free newsletters. And if you're watching this for the first time on YouTube, I will leave the link below in the description for the full interview. Glenn, thank you for joining me. And where do we begin with community projects? I understand that there are so many avenues for people to get involved, where it's to do with their communities and also to do with mental health. So what would you like to bring to the table today?
Okay, so I thought it might be useful for your listeners because I think there's potential for more people to be getting involved in supporting the local community, especially after the COVID crisis. And what we can do is, what I thought it'd be useful to do is explain to people how simple it is to get involved in the local community and develop a project that meets a local need. That can be anything from, supporting old people, helping young people out that are hanging around doing nothing, developing a community park, developing a community growing project. There's all sorts of different things that are out there that you can get involved in. So I thought, given there's quite a lot of interest around that, and I think there's going to be quite a need to help people in the community that have been isolated, that are suffering significantly from mental health issues, that getting people back together to take a bit more ownership and pride over the community is something that's really important. It's something I've been doing for over 20 years now. I tend to work within some of, the most disadvantaged and deprived areas. And one of my main focuses has been helping young people into work.
Right. Sorry, was you going to carry on?
No, it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, okay, great. I was going to say, can we be more specific in which type of areas we're talking about as well, and how we can help in the communities and with these projects?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, I mean, the key thing is to find out and work out what are the needs of your local community. That could be anything from getting involved, like I say, in developing an area that's currently overgrown and fly tipped on, or it's always covered in litter, to finding out who owns that and then taking that over and using that to grow fruit and vegetables for the local community. It's great to get people, especially young people, involved in that sort of exercise so that they start to learn about the health benefits of that. That's one example. Other examples of projects might be there's going to be a lot of isolated older people in the community that may not be receiving the kind of support that they need. They're going to be even more worried about what's happened, and they might just need something like somebody to read to them, somebody to collect prescriptions for them, or somebody to do some shopping for them. There's other projects where you've got children in schools that haven't got the technology that they need. Some children need additional support in terms of reading. Children also need support in terms of, or families in support of getting school uniforms. So things like school uniform banks. My sister was involved in setting up a school uniform bank in her primary school so that they could actually reuse the school uniform for those families that didn't have enough money to buy it. So there are a few examples. What I thought it might be useful to do today is just to talk through for your listeners the means and ways of identifying a project, if they've got one in mind, and how they go about doing that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, so obviously the first stage of the process is identifying what the needs of the community are. And, people might have a project in mind because, they've come into a situation themselves, or like I said, they've seen an area that needs developing, or there's a shortage of, say, youth facilities in the local community. What I suggest to do is getting together with like-minded people, sort of your neighbours, friends, people from your local school, if you attending a local school, and determine sort of, what the need and interest is within the community. Once you've done that, then it's good exercise to carry out some consultation. So, there's many ways that you can do that by initially just talking to people. You could do a questionnaire to find out, what people think about a particular project idea, or whether, what people think about the lack of particular services in the local area. And then do a little bit of an audit of your local community to find out what people think is missing or what they need. Then my recommendation would be to hold some sort of community event and make it fun. And this is great to get families involved in, So that could be something like, a community meal, community celebration. So one example that's coming up is the Eden Project communities. They deliver a project every year called the Big Lunch. If you visit their website, if you sort of look up Eden Project communities, Big Lunch, then you can apply for a kit to help you put together a big lunch within your community. So how that might work is people could all cook different dishes at home, bring them to a sort of celebration event in the community, put tables and chairs out, in the yards or in the street, or on some common space like a park, or utilise a local primary school, and use that as a bit of a stimulus to get people talking, carry out some further consultation, and bring like-minded people together to start to, make some change and set an agenda for what they want to do. There's quite a lot of support out there in the community that people can access. So there's what's called the Council for Voluntary Service, which every local authority in the UK has. And then, abroad, I did a little bit of research. I've just got some notes here, so I'll just grab them so I can let you know. For those in the USA, there's the National Council of Non-Profits, which you look up and find your state association within that. They'll be able to support you with the relevant information, tools, guidance, constitutions to help you constitute your group. In Canada, it's a Council on Foundations. In Australia, it's called the Community Door. And in New Zealand, on the Legal Vision website, there's a section there on how to start a non-profit organisation in New Zealand. So there are a few examples in other countries of how the resources that are available. But within the UK, certainly, every local authority area has a council for voluntary service. Now, they have dedicated workers which can help you or help people become constituted and then go through the processes of applying for small pots of money that will help them realise the project.
Right, I see. Okay. And what you do understand that 65% of the listeners are in America as well. So we have a very small percentage. I think it's about 7 to 10% of the UK who actually listen here. No, it's a great idea. Whereabouts are you from in the UK, Glenn?
So I live in the north, in Lancashire, but I've worked pretty much all over the country in different areas. So I've worked up in the northeast, I've worked in Yorkshire, and now I'm back in Lancashire, which is where I was sort of brought up, where I was born. The principles of developing a community project are no different wherever you are. And if you are in a country and you want to develop something outside of your country, and go and work in Latin America, Africa, India, somewhere like that, then obviously you've also got the voluntary services overseas where they help with people developing projects within communities of need. So, that's another avenue for people if they're wanting to take a different direction in life and look at how they can help others in other countries. But certainly, like I said, the principles of setting up a community project will be, pretty similar no matter where you are in the world.
Absolutely.
Now, do you want me to what I thought I could do is just continue following the consultation, following an event, what some of the other processes to follow, and some of the potential sort of small funding pots and things that are available to get a project kicked off.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So my recommendation for people is once they've carried out some consultation and they've got people together and got in touch with the Council for Voluntary Service, is that they develop what's called a community constitution. So you become a constituted group. So your constitution then becomes the rules and also the values and the objects of what you're going to be doing. What you would do then is you would set up a small kind of committee where somebody chairs the meetings, you've got a secretary to do the correspondence, and you've got a treasurer to look after the funds. You'd also have other members of the community that come along and help with, developing the project ideas and delivering activities.
Hmm.
So some of the work, obviously, that can be done doesn't necessarily need any money to do it. There's lots of groups that will set up and get together. They might need a few bits and pieces of tools, but there are small pots through the Council for Voluntary Services, and I'm assuming it will be pretty similar in other countries, where you can apply for small grants just to get you some tools. If you wanted to do, say, a litter picking project in your local community to keep your local community clean, recycling, facilities, or, there's all sorts of little pots of funding available to start getting involved in your community. So once you've got your constitution developed and you've got it signed and you've had your first meeting, then what I'd recommend is that you can set up a bank account. You need probably a couple of signatures on there, certainly, for some of the funders. And that can be done quite easily in the UK by visiting a local building society. Now, I'd recommend a building society initially when you first set up your project, because they are pretty easy to set up for community groups. Not all building societies do it, but a lot of the smaller local building societies will. That's certainly been my experience. The Cooperative Bank as well have a special account for community organisations. So the Cooperative Bank will be another bank that is ethical and support. They don't charge community groups for banking with them. It's part of their their sort of ethical banking policy. So there are a few recommendations. I'm sure further afield around the world there'll be similar charitable and ethical banks, building societies and other organisations which are there to support and facilitate banking services for community projects.
Yeah.
What I would then do is consider, like I say, what you need to deliver your project, and whether that means that you need to bring some additional resources in, or what resources are already in the community that you can draw in. So it's approaching other like-minded organisations and like-minded service providers. So within your local authority area, maybe your local town hall, and just find out what services are available through them. And then you're not duplicating, but you could always enhance those or bring people into your community to get those services delivered. Lots of town halls and local authorities, again, will have small pots of funding available for communities to develop projects that meet local need. So again, that might buy you tools. It might buy you some expertise to do some training, to train volunteers. It might buy you some books if you wanted to set up a little, book reading service for older people. It'll buy you tools and materials for a food club if you wanted to start doing a luncheon club for older people or disabled people, for example. And it'll also pay for things like room hire costs if you needed to hire your local community centre or local school to do any activities. So all those sorts of things, there's funding available to access those. One of the funders that I wanted to just talk about a little bit that's in the UK is called Awards for All. So it's one of the big lottery programme funds. It's a smaller fund, and normally the turnaround time for it is between about 6 to 12 weeks. Mm-hmm. So it's quite quick, so it means you can get a project going. What they're looking for is very much grassroots projects, and they want to know what you are wanting to do and why you're wanting to do it in terms of the need for the community. So utilising what you found from your consultation, and essentially pulling at the heartstrings of the people that are assessing the application, should mean that you will be successful in your project application. And with that particular fund, you can access up to £10,000. So as you can imagine, with volunteers, £10,000 can pay for quite a lot, and over a 12-month period, that will allow you to firstly establish a project and test that project out to determine how successful it is. And then you can take that project further and look at other bigger funding applications or bigger funds to extend the work either geographically or across different demographics, or just extend the project, just to keep it at the same, the same support levels that you need. Some projects will just have a lifespan. So, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If a project just lasts for, a few months, or, it's just about getting people together for a certain period, particularly as part of the recovery from the coronavirus issues and, people having been so isolated from being, the movements, etc., being restricted, it might be that a 12-month project might suffice. But I certainly feel that as part of us, moving out of the situation that we've been in positively, we do, those of us who are able to, should be considering the impact that this has had on our communities, and what we can actually do to be champions or leaders within our community to support, the redevelopment and the recovery.
Absolutely. No, I think you're doing a fantastic job by helping people understand how they can help in their communities. And definitely we need more leaders. I think everybody moving forward needs to train how to be a leader in their community, so that we're all sovereign beings, because we can't be followers and be a sovereign being. We have to be leaders, so I think you're doing an amazing job. Is there any contact details? Are you offering any, workshops that you can for the listeners, for, that they could contribute to their communities? Is there any contact details that we can leave for you if anyone wants to, contact you for advice?
People can contact me through my website, which is eatgrowthrive.co.uk. And I'll obviously do my best depending upon how many messages I've got, because I've got a busy agenda. Mm-hmm. I've got a pub, as I said, and we're hoping to reopen properly on the 17th of May. So I've got quite a bit to do in terms of getting that ready. And I've got a sort of health and wellbeing residential I'm doing with my staff, actually, because we've got a lot. I mentioned I've got a lot of young people that work for us, and again, they've been quite isolated. So we're doing some work with them, which will be really good for helping their mental health. So I suppose on that basis, I encourage other employers to consider the mental health needs of their employees when they're bringing them back to work, just to make sure that they get they're supporting them with any confidence issues and anxiety that they might have, coming back to work full time. But certainly, please feel free to contact me, and I'll do my best to give you as much advice and support as I can.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will be interested, because I do get a lot of emails asking me how they can contribute, what can they do, because people want to help. A lot of the listeners, they really, really want to help. They want to be involved. They want to do something, and they're looking for things to do, and they don't know, some of them, and this is what they need. They need someone like you that can guide them, that can give them something to do, because there's always something to do in our communities to better our communities, and there's a bit of everyone everywhere. Especially with my listeners, it's an international platform, a large international platform I have. So, absolutely. If I can leave your details below in the description, and people can contact you, and we can take it from there. How does that sound, Glenn?
That's great. Yeah. I'll just add as well, just following on from what you've said there, I think you can't underestimate the value, intrinsic value that you get from, getting involved in projects within your community and volunteering. It's really, really is important, and it adds such a dimension and value to your life, and helps you to kind of, feel good about yourself, but also know that you're making a difference and contributing to, your local community, but also to the good of the planet, which I think, given the situation that we've been in over the last 12 months, is ever more crucial.
I 100% agree with you. And when you're serving humanity, we manifest better. That's the best way. Absolutely. It's very good. It's very rewarding, and it feels good for the soul. Definitely. No, Glenn, thank you very, very much for joining me. Is there anything else that you would like to say to the listeners before we finish?
No, I'd just like to say all the best with your community projects. So get out there and get stuck in, get your sleeves rolled up.
All right, then. Thank you so much. And we'll speak again soon, Glenn. Thank you. God bless.
Cheers. All the best.